Welcome to the Manaverse Podcast. I am your host, Tom Traplin, and this is the podcast where we explore what it takes to build a successful, friendly local game store. If you like what you hear on today's episode, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on whatever fine platform you're listening on, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment letting us know your thoughts. As always, you can find the notes and links mentioned in today's episode at manaversaga.com. Today we are talking to Jake Tanner. Jake is the owner of Unplugged Gaming in Manlius, New York. Jake has come into the tabletop gaming business from a different angle than most of the game store owners that have been featured on the podcast so far. Before launching Unplugged Gaming, Jake, along with his business partner, owned and operated a highly lauded digital marketing firm called Digital Hyve that they grew to over 50 employees over a handful of years. And Digital Hyve was recently acquired by the advertising firm Butler last year, which allowed Jake to explore his other passions, which is the perfect lead-in to what we're talking about today. Unplugged Gaming launched this past November, the retail version of the store, and they did over $14,000 in sales on day one. Since then, they have done over $270,000 in in-store sales and are on track for a spectacular year one. We are going to dig into the Unplugged Gaming launch strategy and talk about how Jake and company got their business off to a great start. Welcome to the podcast, Jake.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's great to be here.
I'm glad that we could connect and have this conversation. I'm excited to dig into the details and find out what's going on, or what you did to make this kind of thing happen. Because this is exciting. Like, it's fantastic. So,
Yeah.
What's the energy like over there the first couple of months at Unplugged?
I think it's been more hectic than anything because everyone hasn't had a minute to digest it enough, I would say, to be like, oh wow, that's like so awesome. We did so great. It was one of those, we did amazing on our like grand opening weekend, and then it was like the next weekend was Black Friday weekend. So we were
keep it going, right? Like you just shot off like a rocket.
It was just like, okay, now we're into Black Friday, and now we're into Christmas, and now we're into the new year, and it hasn't really slowed down. So let's keep going and doing new things. We had maybe a tiny break for a week or two in January. Not really a break. We were still doing really well, but then it was right into February releases, which has just been insane for the gaming industry in February. Yeah,
it sure has. So before we jump into everything, usually I like to start out with a little bit of the origin story of, why you got into this business, why tabletop gaming in general, right? Like for you, you've come from a completely different background, a completely different industry, and then you're now shifting into this more fun, well, hopefully fun and energetic, tabletop hobby. It's very different from digital marketing and like the agency life. So, what were you up to before, and why did you end up, starting the business? What was the dream there?
Yeah. We originally. So my background is about 10 years in digital marketing before this, and 7 years ago I started Digital Hyve with my business partner, and it was online advertising, and that's what we did for local businesses, small businesses, and medium-sized businesses. And after getting to the point before we even knew it was going to get acquired, COVID happened. That thing happened, and before that, my wife and I have always played board games together. So. With her parents. So her parents always had a weekly game night. We always went over to her parents' house, played game nights every week. We still do. We just did yesterday. So we did that, and that was a big passion of ours. And we've always collected Pokemon cards. Like Pokemon cards, way before this huge craze, we would be the ones that would go to Target and like buy out Target before Pokemon was popular. Back in like 2015, 16, no one else was doing it. No one cared that we were just ripping open everything that we had. And now we cry because some of those things we ripped open for $50 are now like $600, and we're like, why did we rip open 10 of those? Like, that's so sad. But we enjoyed it, and when COVID happened, my wife wasn't working. I was working from home. We were both at home, and we were buying a lot of trading cards. And our first thought was, how do we do something with this? What should we start selling some of our extra cards? What do we do with this? And we really went down the road of, I made a half joke of, hey, let's just start a game store, like a local game store during this, and it'll be fun. Like, you can mainly work on shipping the products and stuff while I'm at home, and in between my work, I can work on advertising it and doing that kind of stuff. And we can just sell some of our stuff that we have online and maybe make something out of it, since we were both kind of like at home and bored at our off time, because we weren't going anywhere. We were just hermits staying at home at that time. And we finally were like, okay, let's just try it. So we did it. And when we ended up doing it, we realized then we had to go down the path of like trying to get distributors or doing things. And we were like, we can't get into most of these distributors because we didn't realize we needed a retail store at the time. And the only thing we could really get was Pokemon. So we started doing that. We started getting some Pokemon cards, very little of them. And this was right before the craze and the boom, which is so crazy because some of our distributors now tell us today that we were one of the last game stores that they took on before they closed the doors and stopped taking on game stores. And we signed up for probably, I think, 10 to 12 distributors when we first started because there was so little allocation for things too. But we started signing up for distributors in September of 2020 for doing like online sales stuff. And when that happened, really the way we launched the online store was we built a Facebook group. We built a Pokemon card trading card Facebook group that now has over 11,000 members in it. And with our launch, we sold out of all of our products in a day. So we launched the online Shopify store. We put all our Pokemon products on it, and then we sold out that day when we posted on the Facebook group. And we were like, what the heck? We just did like a few $1,000s in sales in a day, and we were not expecting that at all. So that kind of led to, let's maybe look for a place, like a physical location, because we started getting more product than we could put in our house. Or anywhere around there. So we ended up actually renting a space in our small hometown of Chenango, which is right next to Manlius, pretty much. And we got a place there where we pretty much stored everything and kept everything, and started shipping out of there for the most part until we outgrew that and decided to open the game store in November.
So it's the love of the gaming, right? That's essentially. It's funny how that is such a common reason for store owners to open their business. It's just a passion for the hobby, and it just becomes like, well, I feel like I can make a run of this. I feel like this is a viable business.
Yeah, and I think what drew me to it the most too was I was mostly on the business to business service side in marketing. Most of the businesses that we advertised were business and service side. And I really wanted to get the experience advertising more consumer-facing, retail product-focused side, which I didn't have as much experience on advertising. Had some, but not a ton compared to the B2B service side, which that's what I did for 8 years or 7 years. So that was one of the reasons too, was I was really curious, can I do this? I'd like to see what this looks like versus the service side thing. And with it just blowing up like that, we were like, wow, we could actually make a go of this and make it something.
So when it came to like advertising, you mentioned that you were handling the marketing advertising side of things, and your wife was doing the shipping, the operations, I guess, of the initial online store. So what kind of advertising efforts did you put into it?
We really just advertised the Facebook group. So we pretty much did Facebook ads to advertise people coming into the Facebook group. And it was really different. What we would do is we would advertise a landing page with an email address, like an email landing page. So you have to put your name and email in. Mm-hmm. And it would say, join our Facebook group. And it was giveaways. So we'd be doing giveaways for Pokemon cards in the Facebook group. Gotcha. We would say, put in your email and name, and you'll get invited to this exclusive Facebook group, because you couldn't directly advertise a Facebook group on Facebook. There's like some things you have to work around there. And so they put their name and email in, they'd get a link into the Facebook group, and so you have to join the Facebook group to join the giveaways. And that's how we originally, before we launched the store, we had about 1,500 people in our Facebook group. And now we're close to like getting closer to 12,000 now people in that Facebook group.
Were they locals to the area, or were you just like everybody could join?
It was just anyone that was interested in Pokemon cards could join.
Gotcha.
Or interested in Pokemon at the time. And it's still Pokemon still Pokemon focused.
That's a really interesting strategy. I've never heard of a store kind of focusing on building a Facebook group prior to building a business and then using that as like a launching pad. That's a really cool way of doing it.
Yeah, it worked. We honestly had no idea what was going to happen when we turned on the website. And I remember we turned on the website, it was around midnight on Halloween. So it was like November 1st. But it was the middle of the night of Halloween we launched the website. And we just started getting sales right away after we posted the link in the Facebook group. And we were like, what the heck? We didn't think we'd start getting sales that quickly.
So before we get into the launch of the retail store, I'm still kind of curious about this Facebook group. What did you do once somebody signed up and they joined the group? What did you do to like encourage the group, or were you constantly participating? Besides the giveaways, perhaps was there efforts to start conversations? Like how did you keep this group kind of active?
The group was great. We rarely posted in it, which was awesome because there was so many people posting themselves that the engagement was so high already. And it still is. The engagement's just been growing and growing as the group grows. And it's really just people posting polls they might have gotten, pictures of cards they got. We allow people to sell just cards there, but no sealed product. So they actually can still sell Pokemon trading cards in that, buy and sell cards in that group. We do buy cards now in the retail store, but we still don't see it we saw it as more of an engagement thing in the group now. So we never said, hey, you can't do this anymore, because we knew the engagement would pretty much die in that group. And so it was mostly a buy-sell trade group. And we do post like welcome new members. We post that probably once every 2 weeks, something like that, once every week, once every 2 weeks. And we just tag all the new members. Every once in a while we probably post 4 or 5 times a month in the group. And it's either welcome new members or not including our drops that we might do for the store to say, hey, we have this new product in stock, buy this thing. We'll probably do a post tomorrow for Brilliant Stars or something when we get the rest of ours in. From that, it was really welcome new members, or sometimes we would just shoot a poll out there and say, what's your favorite Pokemon card set or something, just to kind of keep engagement going. And we realized that we got way more reach if I personally posted it versus our actual Facebook page posting it. Mm-hmm. So we kind of stopped with the Unplugged Gaming Facebook page posting, and it's been coming from my personal page posting the links or the promotions to our web store.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Personal profiles get far more favorable treatment than business pages, at least right now. That seems to be the case.
Yeah, so we didn't really have to do a lot. We had a couple of admins eventually as we got bigger. We now have 3 admins in there, and they just volunteered to be the ones that kind of ban people and moderate the posts and all those things.
That's cool, though. So it sounds very low maintenance, easy, like lots of upside.
Yeah, it really hasn't been way more upside than downside so far in it.
Let's jump into the retail. Let's go and talk about launch day, opening day 1. So when you were planning for this, you knew the date. You knew the day you were going to open the doors for the first time for real. Or maybe let's start with the soft opening, right? Because you mentioned that you had the grand opening, but beforehand you had the soft opening. So what was your overall strategy and approach to kicking this thing off?
It was rough because we thought we had a date and it kept getting pushed back because we wanted to open sooner than what we wanted to. And it was because we redid the whole store. We remodeled the whole store pretty much from floor to ceiling. And so the remodeling work was taking longer and longer than we thought to do. It was actually part of an old Rite Aid building, or I guess like Walgreens. This is like a pharmacy, pretty much like a pharmacy grocery store type thing. And the floors, everything was terrible. So we redid the floors, the ceiling, the walls, repainted everything, re-put in LED lighting. We just got all of our fixtures in last week, I think, finally. And we were supposed to get those in October. So we still didn't even have all of our fixtures for the longest time. We had to open with what we had to do because I really didn't want to open. I wanted to open before Black Friday no matter what. Yeah. And I didn't want to open on the week. I didn't want to open on Black Friday. That was the big thing. And
yeah, that would seem like it'd probably be too hectic.
It would definitely would have been way too hectic. So we pretty much just pushed ourselves and said, look, we have to open. Like, we just have to. it doesn't, whatever we have out there, whatever we're doing, that's what it is. This is now we have to open. We're going to have to wait and finish the rest of the store later. And we finally got all the actual construction, like build out done. And we finally got our just gondola shelving in as aisles in the store. And we said, let's just get everything out there. Everything in that we have as our product. Let's get everything out in the store shelves, get what we can out there. If we can't fit everything, maybe we'll keep some stuff in the back room, but let's just fit it what we can, our most popular products on the shelves. And we really rushed. In about 3 days, we filled in the whole store, which as much as we could. Our store is about 4,200 square feet, about.
It's a good size.
We have tables and chairs for about 50 people to play games right now in the back of the store. And so we just did what we could, got everything we could out there, and we said, this is it. We made the decision a week prior, 2 weeks prior, and said, we're opening next weekend. We're doing our soft opening. The weekend after, we have to do our grand opening. It's the weekend before Black Friday. That's all the time we have. We just have to do it. Mm-hmm. And we rushed everyone to get in there. We hired 4 people all at once to start to launch the store. It was a crazy, crazy time. And thankfully, like, my background in business and hiring, I've hired a lot of people in my time, so that I think helped a lot.
Didn't fall into the trap of hiring the wrong people right at the start. Hopefully, you were able to find some good ones.
We did really well with who we hired. We got a lot of people that had a lot of experience in the industry itself. Even we have a person on staff that's been pretty much grading cards and selling on TCG Player for another store for the last 4 or 5 years, and we got them to come with us and things like that. Nice. So we got a lot of experience on the team already with those kind of things. And that's pretty much what we did. We said, look, we have to open this weekend. We're opening now as a soft launch, and we soft launched without telling anyone. We just said we're going to open, we're going to test the cash registers, we're going to get all those things done, and answer any questions and solve problems as we go that first week. Mm-hmm. And so we had people trickle in here or there just to be like, what is this? We didn't even have like our sign up for our storefront or anything yet. And we said, okay, let's do this, and then we'll grand open the weekend after, and hopefully everything goes good or smoothly. So that was pretty much it. It was very hectic. There wasn't as much planning as I would have liked for the whole thing.
I think that's a really good example of the fact that you didn't have everything you wanted, but you still did a really good job of getting it off the ground, right? It wasn't perfect, but it doesn't necessarily need to be perfect in order to get really great results. You know, if you put in the work and you put in the energy and put in the effort, you can still get a lot out of it. So I think that's a good lesson for somebody who's opening their store. Sometimes you just have to open imperfectly and roll with it and do your best. Sometimes it's sometimes it works out really well. So for the grand opening, so you had this, like the set date. You knew that you had to open, now or never, or it's going to be months, or you wanted to hit that date prior to Black Friday. When you are, getting ready to open those doors, what were you thinking about in terms of like the grand opening day? What did you want to do? What were your goals for that day? Did you overachieve? Did you underachieve? What did you?
We overachieved. We thought we would be happy with about $3,000 in sales in that grand opening. That was kind of our goal. I think between $3,000 and $4,000 in revenue or sales that day, and we crushed those. We did closer to $15,000 on the grand opening day, which was insane because, to be honest, we have not hit that number yet. Again, since we did that grand opening day, we've never hit $15,000 in one day in sales, and we've come close in some days. We have some Saturdays now or Sundays where we do 6,000 in sales regularly sometimes. So it's still half of what we did on our grand opening or something like that. But it's not, I would say it's not terrible either at the other end. But I just think it was the excitement and buildup of a new store being in town that everyone came in. There was a lot of people that came in that one time that we haven't seen again, I think just because they were curious. And it's crazy because we've been open 3 months now. And about 4 months now, and we still to this day get tons of people that come in every day, I would say, and say, I never knew you guys were here. I haven't heard of you guys. This is my first time in here. And it's surprising to me that there's still that many people that haven't seen or heard of us.
That'll happen probably for the first like year. You'd be like, we've been here for forever now, and you still haven't heard about us. Like that, that's a common occurrence. People,
Yeah.
Saturation takes a while. What did you do to really? Well, I guess part of it is what do you think contributed to like the first day's major success, and then also like what were you putting the work into to get that many people into the shop?
I think it was two major things. We really only did Facebook advertising for the most part, and to announce that we were opening a store. And what we did was we did a Facebook likes campaign for local people on our page, and we did a Facebook event ad for the grand opening local event, and they were both local advertising. So we were kind of hitting it from both angles of, hey, we're a new game store, like our page, and hey, we're a new game store, join our grand opening event. Those were the ads that everyone locally was seeing at the time, and I think that played a huge part in getting the awareness out there. I would say one other thing we did, and I just thought of this, was we posted in a couple local Facebook groups for parents or moms of the local area. And we saw a lot of those people come in actually in the local Facebook group. Like it was moms of certain school districts that were in the area, things like that were the names of the Facebook groups. And we posted in a bunch of those saying, hey, we're having a grand opening. We have a ton of these games and stuff for kids that you might want to bring your kids in to see and stuff like that on this weekend coming up. And we got a lot of good responses from that too.
That's definitely something that a lot of stores either don't think about, the fact that there are these parent groups, like there's probably dozens of them for almost every single major city, but they're sometimes scared of posting in a group like that and saying, hey, I've got a store that sells products that your kids would probably love. Maybe you should come check us out. Usually because they think maybe they're being, intrusive, or they don't want to be spammy or something like that. Did you get any negative response, or was it all just generally okay, positive,
Yeah, we didn't get any negative response, and we got a ton of positive response, because I think on that post, on one of the biggest parent group in the area, I think we had 20 or 25 comments just on that post alone saying they were interested in checking us out. So that was a pretty big deal. And what we prefaced it was, just to be sure, because I sometimes had that same fear, I just prefaced the group or the post in the beginning. I said, hey, if this isn't allowed, please delete this. But here it is. We're opening anew. It'd be great if you guys, support a new local business that's opening. And we didn't have no one cared from around that. They were just excited that a new place was opening in the local area.
That's perfect. That's a great strategy for store owners to keep in mind. Like maybe there are other groups that they could be reaching out to, and like it doesn't cost you anything, right? It's a very low cost, low amount of energy and effort to just join a group and just say, hey, we exist. Maybe you should come check us out.
Yeah.
And it could get you really great results. You just kind of got to get over that maybe that initial hump, that mindset of like, oh, I don't want to interrupt people, or I don't want to upset anyone by telling them about my business. I don't want to appear like I'm scamming or spamming them or something like that. Because I feel like that's a very common mindset, is that they don't want to feel like they're interrupting people or getting in the way. It's the same thing as I'm assuming if you've been in advertising for a while, you're pretty cool with sales and selling and the idea of
yes.
Communicating your value and trying to get somebody to purchase from you. That's not necessarily the case for a lot of store owners, right? Usually they don't come from a sales background. So the idea of having a sales conversation is somewhat kind of weird for a lot of them. But I think that's probably one of the biggest skills, one of the biggest hurdles that they should try to get past, and just be comfortable with talking to people about, this is what I do, this is what I sell. Here's where you can support us and buy from us, and we'd really appreciate it if you did.
And I always just think of what's the worst that could happen. Whenever I do something like that or I get nervous about it, I always think of all the different scenarios, all the worst things. okay, well, they could delete the post, right? Okay, that wasn't so terrible. I'm out a few minutes of writing this post and typing it. They deleted it. The next worst thing that could happen, I guess, is a bunch of people just post on the post and kind of trash my idea or say this place is terrible. I can't believe you're posting this here. I don't know. They call me something bad. Like
They're mean.
yeah, like okay, so if that happens, I will just delete the post myself because I made it. That's not. And then I think of, okay, and the next thing that happens is some people could come in the store maybe, and no one says anything. They just come in because they saw it. And then the best thing that could happen is a bunch of people comment and engage on it, and they really like it. So I think of all those scenarios, and really, it's not that bad. Like none of these scenarios are really horrible once you actually think about what's the worst outcome that could happen when you think of those things, or even selling in general.
That's fascinating. I like the fact that you have merged a lot of what you've learned from your prior business and then taken that and, kind of created this hybrid model of a game store. So you've adapted and implemented the technologies that are available right now and used that to really kind of like kick this thing off. I want to talk a little bit about the online side of things. So you mentioned about the fact that you have a slightly different perspective on the game store model. And you thought that might be contrary to some other game store owners' perspectives. Since you are an online store first, that's your primary business model, and the brick and mortar is an extension of it.
One big thing for us in the beginning, too, was we wanted to make sure that our brick and mortar, I think if you saw it, I should get like a video or pictures out now that it's actually done from last week, I guess. It is super nice. Like we wanted to make sure that we built a super nice place. If we were going to do this and we were going to do a lot online, we also weren't going to just be, hey, let's just have a 20 square foot, I hate to say it, like a hole in the wall and in the front and a giant warehouse in the back. I didn't want that to be that. We wanted to build an actual community. We wanted to run game nights. We wanted to run events. We wanted to invest in those things and staff members that could help people that are interested in this industry and want a place to go. And we already have, it's insane to me how many regulars we already have in that 4 months. People that come multiple times a week already to our store. Mm-hmm. And that's what we wanted to build. We wanted to build a local community, and we wanted to invest in the local community. And then on the flip side, we knew that we were primarily going to be an online business. And we said, if we're going to primarily be an online business, at least we can do something for the community at the same time. So we pretty much thought that, hey, our business as this grows is probably going to be about 80% online and 20% in store, most likely, if we grow the online the right way. And just because the market is huge, like the market is so much wider online versus in store. You can only grow so much in store. And we really made the goal of, we would be okay if our local brick and mortar store took in about $1 million a year in revenue. That's our like goal for the brick and mortar store. We think that's around what our market can sustain. There's a few other game stores here there's one that's also fairly large. And we thought that would be a good goal for us, where more so our online could be $6 million, $7 million a year running the online side of the business. And that's some of our ambitious goals over the next 3 years, is to get to that point. And we think we can do that, but we have heavily invested in really marketing and advertising and trying to build our brand online. Really the local side of it has been, we do local, really our advertising has been around events for local, and the rest of our advertising has been around buying products online and things like that, or selling online. And we've done a lot of different things. We've partnered with influencers and those kind of things to sell our products online too.
So outside of this Facebook group that we talked about before, that you kind of like, you grew this Pokemon Facebook group and then you leverage that into turning that into a store. So outside of this group that you've got, I'm assuming it's still growing, you're still using it, you're still involved, and it's still a constant source of customers and interest in sales and that sort of thing. What other ways are you getting the brand out there? What are you doing to like make the online store bigger? What are you doing to grow it?
We do we do a multiple of things. So one of the big things we've always done is email marketing. We now have an email list of about, I think it's 22,000 people is on our email list now for our online store. And we've always done that since we've grown. We did one email blast. I forgot. It was like a Pokemon promotion once. We did an email blast. I forget when it was, but we did an email blast and did like 20 grand in sales. And people are like, email's dead, like all this stuff. I'm like, well, we just made $20,000 off one email. It didn't cost us anything. So no, it's not. So
I've
that's
been banging that drum for a while now too.
So that's definitely been a big part of it. And I would say too that we do some Google ads. So Google Shopping ads has been another one that we do some of. And we run some Google Shopping ads. We've worked with one major influencer who we partnered with in about of July of last year. And his name is Adrive, and he's one of the biggest like Pokemon YouTubers, Twitch streamers out there. And so we started doubling our traffic when we partnered with him around, kind of like it might have been not quite double, but close to doubling our traffic when we started working with him. And that happened in July of last year. And then we also, another big one that we've been doing is SEO. So we've optimized the website very well. And I think we rank in the top 10 for about, gosh, I got to say a couple hundred keywords now. And people might not know what we're talking about, but at this time. But we pretty much, when you type something into Google, and I'm curious where we show up today, but for example, Pokemon cards for sale, I think we're pretty high up in general in Google. We're still on the first page just for Pokemon cards for sale. In general, we're still above Best Buy and Walmart and stuff like that.
Beautiful. I love that. It's funny because my last recording, the episode that I recorded and published before this interview, was about SEO and the fact that you can compete with those kinds of companies. Like you don't have to, like as a game store, there are ways to, rank for keywords that still matter, that will actually drive sales to your business, and you don't have to feel like you mentioned that people think email's dead. People think SEO is impossible. They're like, oh yeah, you're never going to beat Board Game Geek, or you're never going to ever outcompete certain websites. So, there's no reason to put any effort into it. So again, I love it.
And I think I think those are the major things. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but those are definitely some of the major things that we're doing right now are those categories. And we're planning on ramping that up. We're actually hiring a full-time marketing person right now that I'm going to be working with and training, just because running the business side of things has taken its time away from me running the marketing side of things, and we know that needs a little more nurturing there. So I've been able to send as many emails as I want, or things like that, or partner with as many influencers, or run as many Facebook ads and those kind of things. So it does take pretty time. Far down the road. Yeah, we're pretty far down the road of hiring someone to help do that full time. And that's, I mean, some people, it's tough because we're probably spending like $6,000 to $8,000 a month right now on marketing, and content, like writing content, creating content, paying for ads, things like that, on different platforms, it's mostly Facebook and Google. And Facebook we're mostly using for local. We're advertising mostly locally, local events. Come to like local, we'll boost when we have a new release that we think is popular for Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon or something, but just in-store, local around the Syracuse area. And we notice every time we advertise, and this is sometimes, to me, it even still surprises me, every week we advertise on Facebook locally, we have a busier weekend than if I wasn't advertising on Facebook that week. We can't really tie it directly. It's really hard to capture that direct, Facebook did this, but we've noticed the trend of every time we're not advertising that week, we have a slower weekend. Yep. And I'm just, okay, well, I guess it's not as rocket science as we thought. Let's keep boosting posts and things for new releases or events happening, on this weekend or whatever.
Yeah. That's the funny funny thing. The nice thing about digital marketing is that usually there is a way to track it back to a specific activity. Like, Facebook gives you a lot of data. You can see when somebody actually made a purchase on your site. There's all kinds of ways to be like, this ad resulted in this thing, right? This action. But sometimes it's literally like, I'm just putting some money into this thing, and the message gets out there, and then sales go up later on. And you kind of have to, you have to just sort of like look at the bar graph and be like, okay, so here's where it slightly ticked up. Okay, there's probably something happening here, right? At this particular day when we started doing something. It's not necessarily like you can't say it's exactly going to be this ad is what drove these people to come into the store, but you can kind of get a feel for it. So it's a fun mix because it's a little bit of sleuthing to try and be like, okay, what's really working, what's actually driving, results for the store, and then also sometimes it's like, oh, it's actually this exact thing is working perfectly. Let's double down on this one thing.
Yes.
So fun. It's a fun hobby, fun pastime, marketing. At least when it works. When it doesn't work, it's miserable. When you're like, I'm trying everything, nothing's happening. True. That's not much fun. But when it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, it's a good time. I wanted to actually ask a question about the influencers, because that was something that I don't think almost anyone is really doing in terms of brick and mortar. But since you're an online focused store and you have essentially a global reach, almost, right? Largely, you could sell to anyone and anywhere if you wanted to operate your business that way. Why did you partner with a particular YouTuber? How hard was it to, some of the details? Like, how I know you can't reveal everything, but what was the process like that? And obviously it was worth it. It was well worth the effort to coordinate with this person and find a deal that works for everybody. But what did that kind of look like?
This is going to sound crazy because this story it's going to make it sound, I don't want people to think that opportunity just falls in everyone's laps. Or that I think the more work you do, the more opportunities you have. So I think we're working our butt offs. We were ranking in Google for things like Pokemon cards for sale or Pokemon cards online, things like that. When you searched all these things, we put in the effort to rank in Google early on. That was one of our first things we did. And we started ranking really well. So in June, we got an email that said, hey, my name is Drive. I'm this
okay.
I'm this streamer, and some of my other deals fell through. I'm looking for, new partnerships, things like that. And I read it and I was like, I knew who he was. So I was like, we watched him sometimes too on Twitch and stuff because he's one of the larger Twitch streamers for Pokemon. And we're big Pokemon fans. So I was like, no, this is fake. There's no way this is real. And because we get so many spam emails like that all the time. It's just fake things. We can help you do blah, blah, blah with your business. And
IT professionals from India for blah, 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 blah.
And I ignored it for a day and I went back to it and I was like, man, what if this thing is real though? Because it seemed a little different. It was like a longer email. It seemed a little more. And I emailed back and was like, hey, thanks for reaching out. Interested in chatting sometime. And he emailed me back right away with his phone number. And we hopped on a call probably the next day. And he pretty much said, I want to come to Syracuse. I'm going to drive to Syracuse. I think he lives pretty far away. It must have been a 6 or 7 hour drive for him. And he said, I'm going to come next week. I want to see what you guys are doing. And to the place we had previously built, our kind of storefront there in Shenango. And he came out, we met him, everything worked really well. We had the attorneys write up the agreements, and kind of away we went about a month later. And we announced and launched the whole thing, and we've been selling a lot of Pokemon boxes ever since then. But that was a very different way. I wouldn't repeat that the same way we did with him over and over again, because now he is if he reaches certain goals, he's going to become a minority owner in this business too. So if we reach certain Pokemon sales goals, So it was stipulations around sales goals and sales and staying with us for so long and all these things. It was a much more intricate,
Yeah, it
I
wasn't
guess,
just
agreement.
sponsored posts or be like, hey, say you mentioned the store or something like that, and we'll give you a booster box or something. It wasn't
Yeah,
simple.
it
There's a
wasn't.
lot to it.
Yeah, there was a lot to this one, and because he was a much bigger. I mean, he has almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube, almost 1 million followers on Twitch. Much bigger
Yeah.
size of influencer, and now I'll say today we average probably 40 to 60,000 visitors a month to our website, to give everyone an average of like the size we've grown to in about that year time. And I think today we would do stuff with influencers. We want to work with more influencers. That's one of our game plans this year. But I think we would do much less intricate agreements, I would say. So when we do them, we even have the plan of doing things of just spontaneously sending booster boxes to Pokemon streamers that open booster boxes and just genuinely saying, hey, this is for you guys. You don't have to shout us out. If you want to, you can. We just really enjoy your streams. Here's a booster box for you. And we think genuinely if we do that, we're going to get much more response. And we don't have to go through the whole thing of getting attorneys involved and agreements and who's going to pay what and what time. Hey, you never posted my video. You told me you were going to post. It's just, but on the same time, you have to have the product to be able to do that too. Like you have to get to the sense of doing that kind of thing. But I do think, and maybe I can report back how well it does after we start doing it, but that's more the route we're going to be going in the future versus creating these really big agreements with the influencers and working with them that way.
That makes sense. And I'm sure you're not going to, connect with too many million subscriber level influencers, right? Probably a lot more on the lower level where it's a little bit easier to engage with them and get them to do something that's beneficial for everybody. But that's just one thing that's one of those messier marketing activities, because it's really like it's person to person. It's trying to figure out a way that you're not just putting money on an ad or something like that, which is simple. There's almost no humans involved. It's really, you just put it up there and it happens. It's automated. Working with an influencer is a far more complicated marketing activity. So I was just curious how it happened, but I think that puts another little feather in the cap of SEO in the sense that you kind of you had things set up so that they started coming to you, right? You'd put in the work and that created that opportunity for this person to find you in the first place. Whereas otherwise you're going out there, you're hunting them down to try and build a relationship that way, which is a little bit different.
Yeah.
That's again, fantastic. Super cool. I love this kind of stuff. I love talking about the meat and potatoes, the mechanics of the marketing side of things. So I think this kind of leans into the next question, which is, what's your favorite tech or tool that you're using to really build your business?
I would just say our Shopify in general. We use Shopify for both POS and online. That's our platform for selling. And I know a lot of people have said things about it. It gets expensive with all the extra apps and all those things you can add to it. But so many times I look at those expenses as a necessity or marketing expense, I guess I would say, where if it's going to benefit our customers and us, I'm okay spending, $50, $100 for some of those apps every month if they're going to generate X number of new sales or reoccurring business or revenue, or a lot of people don't look at it in that way, I think. And we have a lot of apps on our Shopify account. I think right now we probably spend, probably $1,000 a month for both Shopify and all the apps we have, from all those things that we do.
Sure, but if it's responsible for for generating, a large number of sales, that $1,000, just looking at the cost is it doesn't tell the whole story, right? If you can spend $1,000 to make $10,000, would you do it? Probably, right? Probably, but tying the cost of the apps and the cost of the platform to additional sales is part of the challenge. But I've spoken about Shopify a lot recently, and the one thing that usually comes up, and I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but Shopify is great for almost all e-commerce except for singles sales. Selling single cards, it's not the greatest platform for, because the SKU counts and that kind of thing. It's a little bit more challenging. Do you have something else that takes care of that, or do you just make it work?
Yeah, we don't sell our singles through Shopify. We actually do it through TCG Player. So we have the TCG Player kiosk in store, and we use the TCG Player platform, and we use their mass price tool, and that's where we list all of our singles on that platform instead, because you're right, Shopify is just not...
It's not built for that.
No, it's not really built for that for the most part. That's been the issue that we've had.
Gotcha. Yeah, I knew somebody was going to, ask that question and be like, well, what is, how do they do that? Has that even a possibility? How did they figure this out? So I just wanted to clarify that. That makes a lot of sense. I guess one of the follow-ups would be, since you've just launched the store, you've had it's fresh in your mind in a sense. It's only a few months past. If somebody else was thinking about, okay, I'm going to launch my store, I'm building towards, opening a store somewhere in the US or somewhere in Canada, I'm a few months out, what should they be thinking about right now?
I think honestly, it's building the presence in the brand already. If you're 3 months out of opening, I think it's very much... You don't want to wait till the week before to say, hey, we're launching a store in a week. Yeah. You very much want to be building something, even if you're just building the hype on a Instagram page or, a Facebook page or something like that, to get people following you and following that you're going to be opening soon. So I can think of multiple ways people could do something interesting of, hey, we're going to do it could be a very small giveaway every week or every 2 weeks as you follow our page to our followers, as we're building the hype of growing, opening our store in 3 months or 4 months. And I really think that's something that people neglect until they open the store. They like to open the store and then tell everyone they're open. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big mistake everyone makes, is not building that presence and that following locally beforehand.
I definitely agree. That's usually what I tell people as well, is focus on building your email list leading up to it, getting into contact with as many people as possible so that they know what you're doing. Starting your social media profiles prior to the existence of the business, like create your page, post about the fact that you are opening, tell the story of what you're doing, showcase the build out of your space. Like there's so many things that you could talk about to get people excited about the fact that there's this new, great, awesome store that you're building that's going to be open soon. And that if you want people to be, pumped and excited and ready to go to the thing that you're about to open and launch, you have to let them know. So I think that's a good message for people who are in their planning stages right now.
Yeah. The other thing is order your fixtures 8 months ahead of time, because that's about the lead time for those right now.
Good advice. Hopefully that sorts itself out over the next year or so, and that's not going to be the case going forward forever. Eventually, the supply chain hopefully evens out, and it's not too crazy forever. But as it is right now, that's definitely a good idea. Plan ahead for that kind of thing for sure. So, I think that's great. I think in general that's a fantastic set of advice. I really like what you guys are doing. I think the launch went really well. I'm curious though. Normally I end this interview with the idea of the main thrust of the podcast is building a successful business. What does it take to get there? To build a successful game store? What does that look like? So success though is a pretty ambiguous term. It's very personal, subjective. It depends on what you're trying to achieve a lot of the time. So I am curious as to, what success looks like for you, both online and offline, and then what's your 5-year vision for this venture that you've got going on?
I think it is a little different for me, because I've done this. I've built businesses before, and they've become pretty successful. So we have very ambitious goals in terms of revenue, at least. In the next 5 years, we see this being a $10 million business for us, which might be unfathomable to some people. Actually, it's our 4-year goal is to become a $10 million business with our projections that we have projected out. And I mean, this year alone, our goal is about $4.5 million in revenue, and we're almost close to doubling from last year what we want to do, with our first year in business. And that includes online and retail sales for the most part. Our retail business, we can see it doing. Retail's capped. You're going to be capped by your market at some point, and I think us doing about $1 million, $1.2 million in sales every year in retail is where I think around where we would be or where we could be capped at. And I think the rest is going to come from the online. And that's why we really wanted to do that, was because we have this really grand, ambitious idea to build a lifestyle brand around tabletop gaming. So eventually we want to be, I don't know if anyone has heard of, kind of comparing it to the brands of Gymshark or G Fuel, and partnering with, but for the tabletop gaming industry, where we're coming up with our own apparel, we're coming up with our own products in terms of, we might be making, card sleeves or top loaders, or manufacturing those things ourselves in the future. Our own hoodies, like all those kind of, our own backpacks that hold board games, those kind of things is all things that we want to do in the future to grow that business and that brand. And we want to partner with a lot of influencers and people to get there, to say, hey, like they really care about the market in the tabletop gaming industry, and they're creating all these really cool things for us, and they're creating these events. So one thing that I didn't mention was, we have plans for the summer coming up with A-Drive and some of our bigger influencers that will come here. We're going to have like food trucks, and we're going to make a destination event with our store. Cool. And do a bunch of things. We're going to do a live stream with it, all this kind of stuff to gather more of that hype and that marketing around that type of thing. So I think that's also that's going to be part of our building our brand. And so we have some super ambitious goals, a little different than normal game stores. And it's not just going to be centered around, like, I would say, this could also be unpopular. It's not just going to be centered around just like Magic the Gathering or something, or like trading cards all the time. We want those things, and we want to offer a lot of those things. We want to sell a lot of those things, but we also want to have a lot of different categories with those things, like our apparel, our own brands, or things like that are happening, accessories, that kind of stuff.
That's cool. I like that. No one's ever said that before on the podcast, and I don't think anyone's working towards that. So if you can pull that off, that would be I think a big boon to the industry in general. Like, that's something that I feel like is missing. And I think you're right on the trend wave right now, right? Because the last 2 years have really changed people's perceptions of tabletop gaming in general, right? It's now become more accepted. It's more mainstream. People are becoming more exposed to it, having to have, sheltered in place or isolated for a very long time. They kind of got exposed to the different board games that are beyond, the Monopolies and the Scrabbles and the different worlds that are available, and finding out that it's a really good hobby. It's fantastic. There's a lot of really good aspects of board gaming and tabletop gaming besides the friendship and the human connection. Like, there's other stuff that's happening, and it's I feel like if you can, if you're in a really good spot to maybe launch the Unplugged lifestyle brand, I think that's a really cool idea. I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, we're super excited to get there, and you can kind of see it. The only other thing I can compare it to now too is look at what Critical Role has done in the tabletop gaming industry. They've done that. They've built that brand. They've made their own products. They made their own TV shows. Like, they've done that whole type of media, and so it can be done in this industry for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe just needs the right mix of personality and effort, I think, and maybe expertise to make it happen. So I feel like you got a good base to make a good go of this thing.
We're gonna try our best to do it.
Awesome. All right. So before we wrap up, where can people go to find out more about you and Unplugged? Where plug Unplugged.
Yeah, you can check us out if you just Google search Unplugged Gaming. All of our social comes up, our website comes up. Our website is unpluggedgamestore.com. You can see everything there. I personally don't have social media accounts to connect with. I haven't gone down that road of building a personal brand yet. I don't know if I will in the future. I always am like, oh, I could start this, but I'm too busy. So really focused on the brand Unplugged Gaming for the most part right now.
Awesome. All right. And all those links will be in the show notes so people can find them. Any closing words of advice for anyone listening who, maybe they're in the planning stages or maybe they've been open for a long time? Do you have any, last gems of wisdom to drop on people?
I think the biggest thing for me is just always be learning. So always learning new things. Stuff is always changing when it comes to retail, to marketing, to getting customers in the door, to product trends. If you're not continuously cycling your knowledge and learning new things, then you're going to stay stagnant. And I don't think now with how the world is, you can't stay stagnant. So always learn new things is my biggest takeaway.
Perfect. I think that is a great place to wrap up the podcast because that's essentially what this thing's all about. Learning new things and getting new skills and hopefully opening doors of opportunity. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast and giving us your time, your thoughts, your experiences. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone else did too. I'm sure they did.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll talk to everyone again in the next episode of the Manaverse Podcast.